What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. And I got Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, and LeBron James news. It's all about the rumor mill. And around this time, things go nuts. And you can't try to respond or talk about every single thing, right? Because we already know there's going to be some of this stuff that's just going to come being pulled out of thin air. But when things start to come from reputable sources, you got to kind of consider maybe there's something to some of this conversation, right? So Jake Fisher of Sports Illustrated, and that's what I have on the screen right now. This is an excerpt from one of his latest articles about some of the NBA news and rumors that are going on. And we're talking Kyrie Irving this time, right? So the word right now is that the Lakers and the Celtics are the two teams that are most engaged in trade talks for for Kawhi Leonard. So this excerpt says San Antonio has informed teams its preferred target in any Leonard trade is a Celtics Jason Tatum, sources say. Teams have noted this is likely a negotiation tactic, and it's widely believed in league circles Boston is more likely to propose a deal centered around Kyrie Irving and future picks. But based on previous behavior, the Celtics are unlikely to overpay for Leonard. Now, the Celtics are in a great position because the Celtics team is really, really solid no matter what, right? We're talking about a team that just went to the Eastern Conference Finals, one game away from going to the finals, and they were playing without arguably their two best players, right? So it depends on where you see or what you think of Kyrie Irving, but this is what they had. But now they have an opportunity to bring in my opinion, one of the top 3-4 players, top 3 or 4 players, at the most top 5 players in the NBA. He is coming off an injury, but he's still very, very young and clearly has a lot of good years ahead of him. The interesting thing about this is that the Celtics, according to this report, would be willing to part ways with Kyrie Irving only a year after pulling off a humongous trade to bring him to Boston, right? And everybody pretty much knows that Boston fleeced Cleveland in that trade. They totally jacked them in that trade. So if they get an opportunity to flip Kyrie into Kawhi, does that make sense? On one hand, you can look and say, well, wow, they would more than likely have a log jam at the 3 because you're looking at Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kawhi Leonard all competing for minutes. Clearly, Tatum especially, and potentially even Jaylen Brown can slide to the 2. So that's one thing that you have there. You're already looking at a situation where Marcus Smart may not be coming back. So maybe that all kind of works out in that way. And then at least one of those guys has to be willing to take a bench role. Which one of those guys? All 3 of those guys could feasibly say they want to start, but Jaylen Brown seems like the most likely one to come off the bench. The other thing is it's not going to be a head up Kyrie Irving for a Kawhi Leonard trade if that was to happen. The Celtics are going to have to throw in some combination of a young player as well as a draft pick of some sort in order for the Spurs to do that. And on top of that, the Celtics are taking a gamble because Kawhi, the reports are indicating he's made it very clear that he wants to play in LA. So this could effectively be a 1-year rental for the Celtics if they chose to pull the trigger on a deal like this. So that's a huge risk and a huge thing that they have to consider. But it would make a lot of sense because you're talking about having 3 versatile defenders who can switch on screen and roll and are pretty much interchangeable on defense. Now, there is a possibility, obviously, that the Celtics would include Jaylen Brown in the deal. So perhaps we're talking Kyrie Irving and Jaylen Brown and maybe a 2nd-round pick, and you get Kawhi Leonard and maybe San Antonio throws something in as well to just kind of even it out a little bit. But make no mistake about it, nobody who is a really strong evaluator of talent in the NBA considers Kyrie Irving for Kawhi Leonard an even trade straight up. Kawhi Leonard is a much better all-around player than Kyrie Irving. That's a fact. I know people are in love with Kyrie Irving and they love the handle, they love the scoring and all of that. But if you're evaluating these two players top to bottom, he's nowhere near Kawhi Leonard. And before this past year, the injury history was drastically in favor of Kawhi. So then obviously a lot of people wonder how hurt Kawhi is, or is he just really tired of playing for the Spurs? Okay, so that's just one aspect of it, one thing that's going around out there. So there's another big piece of news in association with Kawhi Leonard, and it is being said that Kawhi has reached out to LeBron James. Perhaps I should have led this video with that, and I want you guys to forgive me for the lack of editing. I'm not trying to say I'm shady 0018 any other time, but usually as of late, I've been giving you guys a little bit more on the editing side, but I wanted to hurry up and get to this and discuss this with everybody. But yeah, San Antonio Spurs star, and this is according to Jordan Schultz from Yahoo Sports, who he and Sham Charania are kind of stepping into Adrian Wojnarowski's role as the man or as the men for Yahoo Sports in terms of their NBA news. So if you're not following those guys on Twitter and you were following just Wojnarowski, obviously you want to still follow Woj, but you're also going to want to make sure that you follow Sham Charania and Jordan Schultz as well. But he says San Antonio Spurs star Kawhi Leonard has reached out to LeBron James, informing the 33-year-old superstar that he wants to play alongside him, a source told Yahoo Sports. Leonard pitched James on his incredible defensive ability and how it would alleviate the pressure on James, the source said. On June 15th, obviously, Yahoo reported that Leonard, 26 years old, wanted to be traded from the Spurs organization, and trade talks with San Antonio regarding Leonard reportedly picked up steam Thursday, with the Lakers expressing interest in a deal. Now, some of this is kind of like, okay, do we really think that Kawhi Leonard had to pitch LeBron on his defensive ability? I mean, I'm pretty sure LeBron was front and center when Kawhi Leonard won the NBA Finals MVP as his Spurs beat LeBron's Miami Heat. So I'm pretty sure LeBron knows who Kawhi Leonard is. I don't think he has to pitch who he is or his game to him. If this, and I'm not saying this conversation didn't happen, but if this conversation happened, it probably didn't go like that. It's probably a situation like, hey, Bron, I'm doing my best, man, to try to get to LA. There's only so much I can do. I want to get traded there, but it depends on what these teams want to do. I'm just telling you, whether or not, I don't know what you're going to do. Maybe I already know what you're going to do, but if you're going to sign with the Lakers, man, I'm telling you, I'm coming either this year or next year. Regardless, I'm going to be there. That's more than likely how that conversation would go. Now, unless he could throw a disclaimer out there, unless something changes, anything can happen or whatever. But in my heart, in my mind, I believe that if I can kind of push this, Spurs to trade me there, I'm coming. But if they don't, I don't care where they send me after this year, I'm out. That would be more than likely. He doesn't have to tell him, hey, LeBron, I'm a really good wing defender. I don't know if you know, I'm a multiple-time defensive player. LeBron already knows that. LeBron already knows that. I don't think that they need to go there. But now I will say this. This is something that I don't know how many people have discussed this or not. But a lot of people are talking about the fact that if LeBron, Kawhi, and Paul George end up in LA, how that is a lot of guys at the same position just kind of stuck. But I see it that way, but then again, I don't. First of all, we already know LeBron can play three positions pretty easy. He can play the four, really. He can play the point, the two, the three, or the four really easily with not much of a strain. A lot of people have been calling for him to go to the four for years. Perhaps now is the time to do it, especially if you're playing with Kawhi and Paul George and you let Kawhi slide into the three and Paul George slide into the two. George and Kawhi Leonard could potentially be, now get ready because I'm about to say something. And if you think about it, though, and I'm going to explain it, but if you think about it, it makes some sense. George and Kawhi Leonard could potentially be the two greatest teammates that LeBron has ever had. And I'm going to tell you why. And I should have did a separate video just on this concept, but I'm going to say it here. Whenever you have a Batman, right, you need a Robin who is almost as talented, but whose personality and temperament does not mind being the second guy, a la Scottie Pippen, a la Pau Gasol to Kobe Bryant. When you have a guy who has sick game, just sick game, like Paul George, like Scottie Pippen, like Pau Gasol, but they're like, you know what? It's cool that Klay Thompson is a perfect example. It's cool that I know that by myself I can put up 25, 26 a game. I know that. I have no problem with that. But you know what? I don't mind playing with a guy who's going to get all of the attention. I don't mind playing with a guy who's going to pretty much get the majority of the glory, but I'm going to be a part of a championship team. I think it's undersold how really important that is. And I think both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are those types of guys. They will, I mean, Paul George seemingly was receptive to playing with Russell Westbrook. Now, he gave it the year, but I think Paul George wanting to come to LA is more about him wanting to play at home than it is about him wanting to play with LeBron. I definitely think he wants to play with LeBron, but I think he wants to come home and play. But for him to be receptive to playing with Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook, two notorious ball hogs, now you're going to come play with LeBron, who's not a ball hog, not at all, but he is a guy who is going to be the focal point of everything. Kawhi Leonard, up until the last 6 months, we barely heard him speak, and we're still not hearing him speak a lot, but we barely even heard things coming from him, whether they were whatever, right? He was like there's a such thing as a low maintenance player. Up until about 5 or 6 months ago, Kawhi Leonard was a no maintenance player whose game, both George and Kawhi Leonard's game is pretty much, they're like super duper 3-and-D players. And when I say super duper, I'm the traditional 3-and-D player is, a Trevor Ariza type guy, right? Who is really solid on the defensive end and they knock down the corner three, and which makes him a valuable player. Well, Kawhi and Paul George take that whole concept to a whole nother level. Can they play that kind of a role? Absolutely. But they can also create offense for themselves, and they can also create offense for teammates. But the great thing about their temperaments is that both of them would be fine for stretches at a time with LeBron going and doing his thing, and they're literally spotting up and keeping the defensive stretch, keeping the floor spaced. But the cool thing is when LeBron needs a break and a rest, if this does happen, the Lakers could go to Kawhi and say, go, get it. We'll play off of Kawhi for the next 7 trips. Or no, Paul George, go get it. We'll play off Paul George for the next 5 to 6 trips. I'm telling you, if it may seem like it's a lot of guys playing the same position, but if the Lakers can assemble this and have a capable big who can rim protect, rebound, run the floor, and dive to the basket off screen and rolls, and you have a point guard who will defend and who can just be decent. I'm talking about 35% from 3-point range. Nobody's going to beat him. Nobody's going to beat him. And obviously, they got to stay healthy. But nobody's going to beat him. They have to staying healthy is huge. Obviously, it's huge. But if the Lakers can put this together, and when I say nobody's going to beat them, I'm looking at Golden State. Nobody is going to beat that team. Now, there's obviously still a ton of ifs involved there. Lonzo's jump shot has to get better because more than 9 times out of 10, he's that point guard that we're talking about. The big that we're talking about is not currently on this roster. So they got to find that guy, and they're not going to have a ton of money to throw it at whomever. So a lot of these guys are more than likely, we're talking Paul George and LeBron James, they may have to take a little less than the max to be able to get the type of big that they need, and to also fill out that bench with capable guys who are able to at least contribute when the starters sit down. But obviously, the hardest pieces to the puzzle would already be in the box. And I don't know. I don't know how people feel. about this whole thing. I don't know. I don't know how people feel about, I don't know, would the Lakers be the hated team, or will people embrace the Lakers because everybody hates the Warriors? How is this going to affect the landscape of the NBA? This is going to be one of the most interesting off seasons in years, and we've had some really interesting ones in the NBA. And if the chips fall where it appears they are going to, and I've already put out a video earlier today, I totally believe LeBron's going to the Lakers. I think it's already said and done. I think it's going to happen, whether or not this Kawhi Leonard thing happens or not. But if all of the chips fall in and this team stays healthy, nobody's going to beat the Lakers. It's just that simple. Nobody's going to beat the Lakers. So obviously, I know everybody will call me on this if I'm wrong, and I understand. But that's what I got. So as always, I talk sports, I talk gaming, and I always appreciate you watching. God bless and peace.